Joining me now is our panel, NBC senior national political reporter Sahil Kapur. NBC's Dasha Burns, she's been on the road talking to voters. Also with us, former Democratic Senator from North Dakota, Heidi Heitkamp, and also a CNBC contributor, and former Republican Governor of North Carolina, Pat McCrory, an NBC News contributor. Sahil, our codependent presidential nominees. It is kind of a codependency.
It certainly is, and I would argue between the two of them, Biden needs Trump a little bit more than Trump needs Biden. They have faced each other before. Biden has won. I have no doubt that Donald Trump would rather be running against Hillary Clinton, who is someone he defeated. But for Biden, Trump represents everything he ran against in the first place, the whole reason he ran, and the lane that opened up for him. Here's a man who wanted to be president for 30 years, never really worked out, and Trump came along. He was the steady hand. He was the known quantity against the chaotic president, and he intends to use all the same arguments that he used the first time, this time around, and in some ways, Trump has made it pretty easy. He's leaned further into conspiracy thinking. He is defending January 6th, if not embracing some of those who, participated in that riot. So his argument is there. The question is, can he turn out the same coalition that he turned out in 2020, President Biden? Can he hold progressives the way he did last time around? And will Trump's turnout be as strong as last time? I don't see those suburban voters shifting toward Trump.
I know these guys want to jump in here, but Dasha, you spoke to some voters. Let me play a little bit of that and get more from you on this.
Are you excited?
No. And I think the rest of the nation feels the same way that I do. I think we want to move on from the events that transpired pre-2020.
Not that excited. What's your biggest concern about it?
I mean, definitely age.
Will you vote for him again?
If it comes down to it, of course I would.
If it's Biden versus Trump, what do you do?
Jump off a bridge? I don't know. It's a really tough one.
It feels bleak. It really feels bleak. There's no, it feels like a lesser of two evils situation.
You know, Dasha, I haven't covered a presidential election other than once where I felt like the supporters were excited about the candidates they were supporting. Obama and McCain got there, where McCain acolytes loved McCain. Obama acolytes loved Obama. It was kind of an outlier.
Chuck, these voters are saying, please, please don't make us do this again. Don't make us do this again. I mean, what Sahil was just saying, like, Biden's going to make the same arguments again. It's going to be a replay again of the election that got people pretty darn depressed in this country. And younger voters especially are so, they just can't believe that that nobody wants to see this matchup, and yet this is where we are. And you heard from Mo there, one of the voters. He was really interesting. He's an independent. He voted for Trump in 2016. He voted for Biden in 2020 because he said he was very unhappy with Trump. He felt like the country lost itself under Trump, he said. He's not happy with Biden. He told me that he would consider voting for Biden again. Trump was an absolute no. He said January 6th, shut the door on Trump. But if it was Biden versus DeSantis, that would be a different story. He opened his mind a little bit.
Yeah. You know, it strikes me, Heidi, one of the ways I've described this is that almost both parties are acting like we're on a wartime footing, and you've got to stick with the generals that you have, maybe not the leaders that you want.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because one thing that's getting lost in this discussion is Trump is not guaranteed that he's going to get the nomination. Biden doesn't have any primary opponent, and so that puts him in that spot where he doesn't have to defend himself against a primary opponent. The question is, what happens with Trump? And I'll tell you, there's two things since then. January 6th, which is that freedom thing that Biden's talking about, and Roe v. Wade being overturned. Those were not the reality when they ran in 2020. Those are huge problems for Donald Trump. And so, you know, I think the one thing, and this will probably get me in trouble, I think the one thing that can happen as a result of this lack of enthusiasm is third-party candidates will see a real opportunity to step in.
Well, look, Pat, you're toying in this world with no labels. You've been very upfront about it. There's a lot of certainly Democrats who think that any third-party candidacy is more of an asset to Trump, and there's a panic about it. But I get the vacuum that's being created here. I mean, that voter, you saw that voter. I mean, I know you're thinking, I'd like to talk to that voter and figure out, can we come up with a ticket that should support?
Well, it's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment because if these were the only two people being put up for the Charlotte Rotary Club presidency, we'd go, can't we do better? We're talking about the President of the United States. And I really, that's how people feel. Yeah. And I do believe if there's ever an opening for a third-party candidate, this would be it. Now, I don't think we'll know for a while. I don't think we'll know really until after Super Tuesday. But after Super Tuesday, we'll know, are these the two candidates that the parties are selecting for us when they know the majority of the American people don't want either one of them? It's shocking.
But I guess, Sahil, I just don't buy that. I just think our politics are so pugilistic. I've accepted the premise that no matter who ends up the leader of the party, within 3 weeks, they become a caricature of what the other side wants that person to be seen.
Right, and there's negative partisanship. You're voting against someone more than you're voting for someone in this day and age. You see the popularity numbers, which is why, you know, our poll found that 70% of Americans don't want President Biden to run. We all know a huge portion of that 70% would still vote for him if the alternative is Trump.
I'll go a step further. We know a majority of Democrats don't want him to run again, yet he's still getting 65% in primary polls.
Exactly.
So these are people that don't want him running again going, well, he's the bulwark.
All of these voters I talked to all said, if it comes down to it, yeah I'm going to go out and I'm going to vote for him. So he still has that.
But he's a bulwark. He's not they're not voting for him. They're voting against that.
Right, and there's plenty of political science research that shows that negative partisanship entrenches the two-party system. In theory, you can look at the unpopularity and say there's an opening for a third-party candidate. The opposite is true.
I think
you're voting against someone, and you're more intensely voting against someone.
And you want to make sure when you're voting against someone that someone beats them and that you don't divide that vote.
You've experienced this more. I mean, in some ways, right, partisanship is probably why you didn't win a second term.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I've told everybody the first time I ran, 22% of Republicans in my state would vote for a Democrat. The second time I ran, it was 4%. And so people have picked a team.
And you didn't change your views.
Right.
You still were voting in sort of the same centrist way.
And, you know, so Aaron Rodgers isn't with the Green Bay Packers anymore. Guess what? There's still going to be Green Bay Packers fans. I mean, they pick a team. They stick with them regardless of who's leading the team.
It's almost as though we're in a gerrymandered presidential race because all they're doing is, it used to be only congressional races were deemed to be, you have to win the primary to win the general. I mean, because the general's over. Now, everyone's running for the primary voter, the base.
That's what I said, the primary problem in Republican politics and in politics in general is literally the primary problem.
Primary problem is the primary problem.
It's the primary problem. It really is. Because when you look at, like, say, ranked choice voting, there are some examples in some states and in some cities where that starts to change the dynamics, where there you start to see some moderates come out of the primaries. But
guess who's killing these ranked choice voting efforts?
But look what's
partisans.
Look what's happening to the two candidates. They're playing against each other's fear. And the most in North Carolina right now, they're playing commercials on Social Security. Biden against Trump being against Social Security, and then Trump running commercials against DeSantis on the same fear of Social Security, knowing, by the way, that Social Security is in trouble in 7 to 8 years.
Donald Trump literally changed the rules, though.
He did.
In 2016 was the first time you saw people run to get their base and then come to the middle. People didn't come to the middle, and they're not coming to the middle again. And that is what's frustrating the American public.
He also changed the paradigm in Republican politics. You can't really do dog whistles anymore and kind of hint at things. He just came out and said what he was thinking.
Look at Nikki Haley and the age issue.
Yeah, there's nothing clouded in what he says.
So let me play the Nikki Haley here, because I think this is a bite that would have been condemned by members of both parties 10 years ago. Take a listen.
He's announced his, that he's running again in 2024. And I think that we can all be very clear and say with a matter of fact that if you vote for Joe Biden, you really are counting on a President Harris, because the idea that he would make it until 86 years old is not something that I think is likely.
What's interesting here, first of all, she's not correct. Once you've made it to 80, the likelihood you make it to 90 is actually in the 80 to 90 percentiles. So she's actually wrong on the numbers there. But the direct hit, the fact that we have no political etiquette anymore in politics, Sahil. We just don't.
She's saying what a lot of Republicans are thinking, and she sees the writing on the wall. Donald Trump has changed the game to win these voters. It helps to be brash in a way that'll hurt you in the general election. That might hurt you with other candidates who you might want to dog whistle to in a primary and message to differently in a general election. I think she's seeing that, and she's not going to go all full January 6th QAnon like Trump is.
Right.
And I'm curious, maybe this is a question for Pat. Do you think the January 6th issue comes up in the primary? Why are Republican candidates so reluctant to go after him on it?
They're afraid of the base because the base is blinded by January 6th, and they don't think there's equal treatment. I think they're wrong. But I'm telling you right now, the base is sticking with Trump no matter what happens, and it's enough percentage to win the primary. And now you have, and Biden's big problem is not only is his age, but his vice president.
Yeah,
so if he had a stronger vice president, some people would go, well, okay, he might not be around on long term, but we've got a credible vice president. The polls don't show that.
Dasha, you want to jump in?
Well, to the age point, I mean, I literally just spoke with a doctor who did the calculations based on his the public records, right? And his life expectancy is actually 98, right? No, so it's not, it's just simply not accurate. But you're right. I mean, we've lost any semblance of subtlety, right? We're hitting it on point.
And part of this, when you say who's going to take him on, who's going to take Trump on January 6th, depends on who gets in the race. If Chris Christie gets into this race, trust me, it's going to be front row and center.
Why do you think he's credible? I just don't think he's got the credibility as somebody who was the chief sort of mainstream Republican to give Trump credibility with the mainstream. I don't know how Chris Sununu feels like he's much better positioned to be this year's Chris Christie.
Yeah, you know, though, Chuck, it used to be that hypocrisy and you know, you did one thing, now you're doing another thing used to be fatal. That's not fatal anymore, right? So you
I don't
can
know,
say
it's not fatal to Donald Trump, but every other person that tries to be Donald Trump, it's usually fatal.
True. Well, I mean, and if you say, look, that was there, and then I saw January 6th, and I recalibrated my thinking, and this is wrong. It's wrong for our party. We keep losing with him, which is a pretty powerful message when people want to.
What's the path and what's the math in this primary? That's the question I keep coming back to.
With the rhyming, I like that.
They have to be willing. They have to be willing.
Save that.
They have to be willing.
That's going in a Chiron somewhere.
They have to be willing to say he lost. They're reluctant to say he lost.
Chris Sununu, but this is the chief trick he's pulled, because Chris Sununu made a very powerful argument on this show on Sunday. He said, you know, he lost in 18, lost in 20. And I asked him, I said, but if his supporters don't believe he lost, then how does that argument work?
Hey, I was in a room where he called me a loser after he had just lost an election.
And you had won. Yeah.
It was just amazing. But, you know, I've been on the stage with Ben Chavis, a liberal Democrat. I'm a conservative Republican. We're showing that we can work together and have civil conversation. I'm convinced, I'm an idealistic guy, that people are looking for civil conversation. We're seeing now with the debt issue, we're seeing with some other issues, that the people who are more worried about their primaries, including the president's, are not wanting to come together and solve the problems that we have to solve for the next generation. And that is my biggest concern for our country, this streak of idealism I do have.
The system, though, is sort of almost rigged to the partisans.
Yes, it is.
Well, and like I was saying, negative partisanship entrenches that as unpopular as one or both parties or one of both major party candidates get. You still are more antagonistic toward another.
I still go back to something Tommy Thompson said to me about why Wisconsin stays so polarized. He says neither party loses by enough to recalibrate. And as long as he is right, as long as we think it's just one more voter, one more phone call, one more this, then neither side's going to. So, maybe I should rethink how we do this.
He was right.
Meanwhile, the voters are so frustrated.
They are. And the real fear should be they may not come. Sahil, Dasha, Heidi, and Pat, terrific conversation.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.